This is Troy Black, and I'm here with Michael Davies to talk about his brand new book, The Path of the Warrior. It's book one out of a trilogy called The World of Pangea. Michael, give me a brief description of your book.
Yes, it's great to be here, Troy, so thank you for interviewing me. The book itself, it starts off as kind of a coming-of-age story about the main character, Idris, but it quickly goes beyond that into this epic fantasy story that deals with issues from treachery to redemption, to revenge and justice, and all the while there's behind the scenes this big battle between light and darkness that begins to erupt.
I've read the book and I love it. It drew me in and I just couldn't put it down. And the thing about the World of Pangea is it's obvious that you've gone to great detail to create a very believable and a very entertaining world inside of this novel. Give me a brief description of the World of Pangea and go ahead and tell me what Pangaea means or where it came from.
Pangaea, or Pangaea, is this idea of one continent that existed before the continents on Earth split into different pieces. And so I took the lesser known spelling of Pangaea, and that's because the world itself is one kind of big continent. And so what I've done is there's different cultures in Pangaea. The western kind of side of the culture is very tribal and nomadic, and that's full of a people called the Silures tribes. And then on the eastern side, it's kind of what you'll call an ancient kind of Asian culture. And I'm not going to go into too much detail of that because you'll find out more as the trilogy goes along. And then in the south, you have kind of these three peoples, independent city-states, a little bit reminiscent of the ancient Greek city-states that used to exist.
The book begins with the main character, Idris, facing a challenge or a rite of passage to become a man. Tell me a little bit about this character, Idris, and his personality. I want to give the readers an opportunity to kind of get inside his head a little bit.
To begin with, you don't know much about Idris. You know, he's this he wants to become a man, but he's in effect a boy, at least for his tribe. But he's very passionate. He's a bit of a dreamer, so he has these grand ideas, and you kind of see that in the rite of passage he undertakes. Normally in this rite of passage, people would choose one way, but he thinks, no, I'm gonna do something big, and so he sets out to do something big. And as sometimes happens with people like that, it's bigger than what they expected, and suddenly he needs help. But that comes through. He does find help, but that determination to accomplish what he set out for is definitely present all the way through the book and all the way through his character.
Give me a description of the quest or the mission that Idris embarks on during this book.
Idris chooses this path of the warrior, and as part of that, he has to go away, leave his family for a certain number of years, and he goes to this place called the Eileen, which is separate to the main landmass. It's just a small island on the coast, and there's this warrior training school, and people from all over the Silures tribes come together. All those who have chosen the path of the warrior, they come together on that island, and they train together, and they learn how to defend one another and how to defend their people. Now, later in the novel, Idris has to call on a lot of those skills, and later in the trilogy, it becomes a very crucial part of the storyline. But I don't want to go into too many details yet, because that's my secret for now.
So we know that Idris is the main character, and he's the protagonist. Who is the antagonist in this book? Or is there some sort of greater peril that you would say encompasses the role of antagonist?
So, this is a fantasy novel, and in this world of Pangea, there are mortal people, there are immortal people, and there are gods. And the main antagonist of this novel is Shagar, who is, in essence, he's a fallen god that wants the world to basically worship him. And so there's this conflict of him pulling the strings, and he's really behind the scenes kind of pulling the strings of the different events that are happening in this world. So as the trilogy evolves, and into book 2 and book 3, you do see a lot more of Shagar. He comes much more to the forefront. You're not just hearing rumors about him, but you actually get to see him. And there's certainly going to be this epic scene between Idris and the allies and Shagar on the other side.
What is your overall motivation for writing this book? Or do you have a specific motivation for your choice of storyline or your choice of genre?
There are kind of 3 different genres that I've always enjoyed reading. Science fiction, fantasy, obviously, and historical fiction as well. And so I've kind of dabbled in all 3 of those. but probably about 14 years ago, I had this crazy idea which essentially became the World of Pangea. And it was this epic scene that kept replaying in my head, this battle between good and evil. And, the challenges that people would have to face. What is really good? What is really evil? What is my part to play in this? How can I judge what is bad, what is right? And this novel kind of came out of that. So to say I have a specific motivation might be too specific a thing to say, but I certainly think that in every great story, as with every great piece of music or great piece of art that you see, there is some kind of truth in it that somehow tugs at the human soul or tugs at the human heart. And my hope is that in this novel, I've kind of collected strands together that will tug at your heart, that will help you relate to it, connect to it, and realize that, yeah, okay, there are things in a fantasy novel that can apply to my life. There are things in a fantasy novel that bring me joy, that bring me sadness, that help me think about how I live my life. And I think it's fair to say that in every good story that you read or that you hear, that occurs.
Michael, I really enjoyed reading your novel, and I believe that anybody who loves fantasy won't be able to put it down. Can you give me and those who are viewing just a quick reason why you think people are really going to enjoy reading this book?
Well, look, the novel, as I said, it's a coming-of-age story, but it's also, if you like epic fantasy, if you like these big, overarching adventures that incorporate a whole world, you're going to love this. If you like character development where you get to see somebody's life evolve from when they were a child all the way through to when they're making these major decisions as an adult which affect others around them, then you'll like this. If you're fans of any of the classic fantasy writings like Pawn of Prophecy, for instance, or even I think Robin Hobb's books, you're going to like this because it's a book which takes place around some cultures which have been very specifically developed and can draw you into being a part of a world that is different to the one we experience today, and will take you on an adventure and a journey out of your life into somebody else's where you can experience something which is, I think, really, really amazing.